Bruce lived an adventurous life before being diagnosed with MS, and still refused to let his MS diagnosis slow him down. Prior to his diagnosis in 1983, he pursued numerous and varied interests, including fly fishing, skiing, scuba diving, opera, fine arts, fast cars, and motorcycles. After completing dental school in 1969, he set up practice in Salt Lake City, where he prided himself on providing gentle touch and pain-free dentistry for 20 years. When diagnosed, Bruce proactively found creative ways to remain adventurous and mobile. When he could no longer ride a regular motorcycle, he got a three-wheeler. And when he could no longer ride that, he got a Segway. When he could no longer ride the Segway, he got a three-wheeled recumbent bicycle. He gave back to the community by serving on the boards of the Utah Fine Arts Department and the Utah MS Society. He coordinated the MS art auctions from 1991 to 93 and gathered work from over 50 artists, raising notable funds used for services for MS patients and their families. In 1993, after receiving a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, Bruce received the MS Society's Living with Hope Award for the first time. Despite living with MS for 30 years, Bruce was an inspiration and never complained about his situation. His philosophy in dealing with MS was summarized by his favorite quote: "There are only two kinds of days, good days and great days."
Well, I think Bruce was a tremendous role model to those around him, whether they were afflicted with MS or otherwise. He was a very pragmatic person, and he chose to focus on what he could do and enjoyed that, and did not focus on what he couldn't do. So I think just being a role model was a real contribution.
One of my favorite memories of my dad, I remember one time I told him I would try to do that, and he said, "Katie, we don't say try, we do it." And he was that example. He gave 110% in everything he did.
Dad was very broad-minded, and you wanted to be a better person just because you were around him, just because of the person he was. He was very accepting and tolerant, but he had a standard of the way he lived his life, and you wanted to be better just because you wanted to emulate the kind of person he was.
He was a dear friend. He was a true friend who you could trust and tell many little secrets to, perhaps. And he was also a very, very positive person and fun to be around.
And as a person, and fellow person with MS, or just as an individual, he's a man of such compassion and grace for everyone.
Bruce had a great sense of humor. He had tremendous integrity. He enjoyed life. He enjoyed being on wheels of any kind. I remember when he got a Segway, those two-wheel things, and he was just tickled to death about it. And he just would go everywhere downtown on his Segway.
And he would ride that everywhere. When we'd go out to dinner, we'd all walk to the place and he'd be on that. He could go into the most crowded area in the restaurant. He could drive that right in, right over to the table and sit down. That was his nature. He never gave up. Whatever it was, he would figure out a way.
He ended up getting a three-wheeled bike, kind of a recumbent bike that you sit back on. And he got used to it around the parking lot, and that lasted about 5 or 10 minutes. We immediately loaded it up into his van and drove to the top of immigration, and he went from the top of immigration to the bottom way too fast, but had this huge grin on his face. And when I finally caught up to him and he pulled over, I said, "How was it?" He said, "Scary as hell, but fun."
I think one thing I loved about him so much was he loved chick flicks. I mean, what girl doesn't love a guy who loves chick flicks?
Life was always worth living for him. And I think that's an inspiration to all of us, because I think we can all get depressed about one thing or another, in our lives, but Bruce maintained such a positive attitude that I think that is probably the biggest gift he could give to someone currently living with MS, would be to see what is there that is still filled with love and pleasure.
What Bruce, I think, gave to other people was that they can learn to live with MS. That we all know that the quality of life is undoubtedly going to suffer, but that people can go on and live life and keep their attitudes, keep everything going. And it's important for the families and the person with the MS, which is how Bruce treated it, to have integrity and respect for each other.
A person's true character usually reveals itself in times of real trouble. And having dealt with multiple sclerosis for 30 years and Parkinson's for 20, Bruce truly had an opportunity to let his real character expose itself. And the true character was not one of negativity and anger, but of positivity and a love for life and a willingness to try new things. And so it was interesting that over that 20 or 30 year period, if anything, he became a more remarkable person, a more caring, more ambitious, more adventurous person despite that handicap. And I really think that was admirable.
Congratulations, Dr. White and my friend Bruce. And you are so deserving of the Living with Hope Award. You shared hope with me and with so many others, and you truly left this world a better place. Nobody deserves this more than you. Congratulations.
Bruce, I got to know you late in life, and I have to tell you that at your memorial service, I grew to love you even more because I saw who you were reflected in the eyes and in the voices of all the people who loved you. And it was really a gift.
Dad, congratulations. You are an absolute hero. You have a wonderful legacy. Your grandkids love you so much, and we miss you terribly.
Bruce, honey, I would like to tell you congratulations, and I want you to know how much I love you and how proud I am of you for how wonderfully well you managed your disabilities for so many years. You were always a joy.